Pasifika children continue to experience some of the highest rates of poverty in New Zealand. Child poverty statistics for the year ending June 2023, released by Statistics New Zealand, show that despite the previous government's push to eliminate poverty, there's been no improvement. Alicia Foon spoke with Chief Children's Commissioner Claire Ekmad.
I'm really concerned in this latest data that we see around child poverty rates in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that for the first time since 2018, we're actually seeing poverty rates for children increasing across three of those main measures. And the measure that I'm particularly concerned about is the material hardship measure. So we've seen this year in these statistics a jump in the percentage of children who are experiencing material hardship. That means going without 6 or more of the 17 items that are regarded as essential to get by in everyday life. Things like having access to fresh fruit and vegetables, being able to see the doctor, having warm clothes and shoes. And so that rate, we've seen that go up from 10.5% in 2022 to 12.5% in these latest statistics. But for Pasifika children, that rate is even higher, sitting at 28.9% of Pacific children. That's 28.9% of Pasifika children who every day, that's their lived experience living in material hardship. That's completely unacceptable, and we must focus attention on that.
That is the highest out of any other group.
That's correct. That is the highest out of all groups of children that these statistics are broken down into, yes.
The previous government campaigned on the basis of shifting these statistics, about creating a better life for children in poverty. Do you believe that they delivered on their promises? And what is your call to the current coalition government?
It was a huge and momentous success that the last government actually put into place this child poverty reduction framework. Focuses attention on reducing child poverty rates. And we have seen that over the last few years that child poverty rates have been trending downwards. But now what we need to see is continued and concerted political effort and will that commits to reducing child poverty year on year. You know, I'm really pleased that this new government, during the election period, the National Party anyway, made that commitment to halving child poverty by 2028. We must continue on that track. And what I'm calling on the government now to do is to actually commit to making reducing child poverty in our country a project of national significance. Because, you know, in my role, I hear from children and young people, and including Pasifika children and young people, they say to me, please, let's bring this poverty rate down because it's affecting our lives, it's impacting on our dreams and our potential. So it's incumbent on the government and all of us to work hard to turn that around.
How can we, on the ground, help and support, I guess, all families that are struggling, but particularly Pasifika children, because statistics are showing that they are worse off? It is heartbreaking to see that there's been little to no change. I think a lot of people would agree with that.
And I agree with that. And, you know, my heart goes out to these children who are living in households where very often the reality is that parents, mum and dad, caregivers, they're working really hard, but they're often working in work that is paid at a low wage. So we need to continue to build that collective momentum and those calls for a shift to those wages. We need to lift our minimum wage up to a living wage so that households with children can actually get by and not have this burden of stress that sits on them. I also want to pay tribute to the many incredible Pasifika and other community organisations who are out there serving children and families every day, making a difference in their lives. We need that work to keep going, but it is hard work. And then the other thing I would say is we need to maintain that momentum on Pasifika people-led solutions for Pasifika children and families. Things like Tamaiti Ole Moana, the Moana Connect 10-year action plan that was published last year. It makes really clear those things that we need to be focusing in on if we are going to address this issue of poverty affecting Pasifika children in our country.
And you raise some important work and organisations, groups that are on the ground trying to make a difference. But when you see statistics like this and little to no change or increasing poverty in some of these measures, I can only imagine it be quite discouraging for people. How do you speak to these groups when statistics like this come out?
It is very discouraging that we are not seeing the traction and the progress that we need to see. What I remind our communities of is the incredible strength that sits within them. We have seen that over these very difficult past few years with the pandemic, and we need that to continue. But at the same time, I'm very clear with our Pasifika communities and with wider communities who are wrapping their support around children and tamariki every day. As their independent advocate, I am continuing to make those calls for the structural, system-level changes that we need to see. And right now, when it comes to this issue of addressing child poverty, including for Pasifika children, I'm calling on the government to use this opportunity of these statistics that really focus the mind on the urgency to make wise decisions, to invest in children now, implement evidence-based policy, listen to our communities, to families, to whānau, to children themselves, and heed their calls. Let's take action that's going to actually help children, including Pasifika children, to experience their full potential every day and to actually dream those big dreams that they should all be having beyond dreaming simply of things like having enough food on the table in a less stressful home because of that grinding impact of poverty.